Hi everyone. Many of you have asked me in the last 12 months about internal sinus lifts, and I get it. It's a new approach when we can add 3 to 4 millimeters of bone pretty easily and not have to go through the conventional long-standing lateral sinus approach, which I've used for 15 years. So I'm a little new to internal sinus lifts as well. This is the Bio Blue Sky kit. It's not the only one. And, you know, it may surprise you for me to say right now that you can go on YouTube and there's a guy named Corey Glenn that reviews this kit very nicely. Corey Glenn. I don't know him, but I think he does a good job. Some of you are going to use this kit when you get here. I'm just going to give you a few minutes of it. It'll make a lot of sense to you. So when do we use this? I mean, if you only have available bone of less than 6 millimeters, I would not use this. Either that's a lateral sinus approach with a lateral wall. This is when you have 6, 7, even 8 millimeters and you want to use like a 12 millimeter implant, right? Or 8 millimeters and you want to use a 10.5. It's a great kit. It's easy to use. This is how you do it. First thing you do is you do your CBCT. This does not allow you to skip that process. And then you measure exactly how much bone you have from the crest to the ridge to the sinus. You know, naturally we're talking premolar, molar area in the maxilla. So let's say you had 6 millimeters. This is how I do it. I don't start with this kit. It just is a time waster for me to start all the way down here at 2 millimeters. Okay, and you'll develop your own approach. I take a conventional osteotomy kit. I use BioHorizons, and if it's a 6 millimeters of bone, I will drill to 5. It's measured. It's easy to do, and I'll use the 2.0, the 2.2, the next drill is a 2.8, and I'll usually stop there. I go 5 millimeters, right? Then I switch over to this kit. Now I have to tell you, there's all kinds of opinions about what you should put once you reach the sinus. What should be at the end of your osteotomy. And I'm a big PRF guy. As you're going to see at the Institute, we're going to do at least 4 to 6 cases at the course of using PRF. Blood will be drawn, it'll go through the centrifuge, and there'll be membranes in the patient's plasma poor liquid for you to use. So what I like to do is use a piece of PRF when I'm ready to go into the sinus. But we're not ready yet because we already only drilled 5 millimeters. Then I switched to this drill, and I told you I went to the 2.8. So theirs starts down here at 2.0, 2.2. As I said a minute ago, it just takes too long. So I'm using BioHorizons or whatever company you want to use for the first 3 drills at 5 millimeters. I'm giving you an example of 6 millimeter reading from the crest to the sinus. So then I go to a 2.8. That's the last drill I used. And down here, you have what I would call governors. In other words, the first one I'm going to go to is right here. It's 6 millimeters. In other words, it won't allow you to drill with their system more than 6 millimeters. So you take it and you put the, I'll call it a governor. I don't know what you're really supposed to call it. And now you can't drill more than 6 millimeters. And it's not end cutting either. It's not end cutting. So you can't really perf. So this is important. We drilled 5 millimeters and now we went to the internal sinus lift kit. And our next drill was 6 millimeters. You put it down. You go to this instrument, which goes through your osteotomy. And again, this governor that stops us at 6 millimeters snaps on. So now this can only go 6 millimeters. And you go down and you feel the end of your osteotomy, and you will know when you're in a sinus. If you go down and it's hard, you got to go to the next, because sometimes the readings are a little bit off. Okay? So you went 6 millimeters, but you're still feeling bone. I'm going to 7. Remember, these drills are not end cutting. I'm assuming that when you went in to feel with the I don't know what they call this instrument, they call it a 2.2, you felt bone. So you're not ready to lift the sinus if you're still feeling bone. So what do? You come back to the 2.8. By the way, their drill goes all the way up to a 3.6 diameter. So it really becomes what you're comfortable with, quite honestly. So now if you can see the bottom row, can you see it? Yeah. This says 6, this was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 millimeters. And, you know, maybe you have a crest that's 10 millimeters and you want to bump it up to 12. So that's why they go all the way up to 11. So you're going to re-reach from, in this case, for the 2.8, because remember, I only used the first 3 drills of the Bi-Horizons kit to get to this width. And you'll go to a 7, 8, whatever it is. I'll go to the 9, let's say. Now, by the way, don't skip. You always go in order. And this grabs up here. You put it back in your implant drill. And when you drill this, you'll usually feel it give a little bit. That's what will happen. So at that point, you put this down. You're going to go to this instrument. And when you go down the osteotomy, you will feel it. You will feel it push. And at that point, you are ready for your internal sinus lift. Now, what if you perfect it? Which is pretty hard to do with this kit. That's why this kit exists. So you won't do that. Okay? If it's a major perf, I would probably put PRF, or certain, if you didn't have that, I would put collar plug at the end of your osteotomy. And either if I was able to place a shorter implant, then that's what I would do. If I wasn't able to, I'd just regraft it and come back. And I've never had to do that. You know, so look, I'm not encouraging you to perf the sinus. But I remember talking to Carl Misch, who knew a little bit about implants. And I said, what if you're in the sinus 2 millimeters, a few millimeters? And he said it was absolutely no problem. Now, you don't want to perf the sinus. And anytime you come near to the sinus, you want to ask me about my Augmentin 850 milligram regimen we give them to cover that when we're in a sinus. So now that you're in with this and you feel, and that's what will happen, you won't feel hard bone anymore. You will feel softness. So what do? You get out your 50-50 mix of allograft and xenograft. In my case, I'm mixing it with the plasma pore liquid of the PRF draw I did. And you put in, they have an amalgamator or whatever this thing is called with this kit. You're going to put in about a quarter of the size of your osteotomy, and then you're going to push it in with this instrument. So remember this. On the very apex with your PRF, you've reached the sinus. Then you're going to put in a third of the osteotomy, which is, in our case, about 6 millimeters. That was the example I gave you. You're pushing that down, and you do that 2 or 3 times. You're not going to hurt the situation. You don't want to underdo it at this point. You're going to push in 2 or 3, half to third of your osteotomy size of bone. I use a 50-50 mix when I do this. Mine, again, is mixed with their plasma. I'm pushing it in, and then you get the implant. You drill in your implant to the slightly below the crest. Take an x-ray and see how it looks. And that is your internal sinus lift approach. So remember, check it out on YouTube. There's abundant videos of this technique. And this one that I'm showing you tonight is Blue Sky. And there's a couple of docs on YouTube that do a really good job. One of them is Corey Glenn. So looking forward to you experimenting with this when you get to the Institute in a few weeks. Looking forward to seeing you all.